Good afternoon, members, officers and any members of the public in the public gallery or viewing on the live stream. Welcome to this meeting of Scrutiny and Overview Committee. My name is Councillor Graham Cohn and I'm chairing this meeting. My vice chair is just a little bit stuck in traffic, so he will be here shortly. So he's sent a message and his apologies, he's on his way. I will introduce other attendees when I invite them to speak. Committee members, may I remind you that you should have before you the main agenda. Those in the chamber are reminded that this meeting is being live streamed. The normal procedure at Scrutiny and Overview Committee meetings is to review and make recommendations to Cabinet by affirmation. Only those members of the committee present in the chamber will be able to move, second or affirm motions. However, members present virtually may speak in the debate. May I ask those who are joining us remotely to ensure that their cameras and microphones remain off unless they are addressing the committee. For those of us present in the room, please ensure your microphone is close to you and speak clearly when addressing the room. Finally, a report of this meeting will be presented to Cabinet at its meeting on the 3rd of February. I won't be able to attend that meeting, so it's during the day. I don't know if any other councillors would be able to attend. Councillor Bradnam. Thank you for that, that is very helpful. So if we move on to the agenda, we've first got sorry, I've got a little bit of a croaky throat today, so I apologise if I'm not being very clear, but I'll try and shout a little bit. So we've got apologies for absence first.
Yes, Chair, we've had apologies for absence from Councillor Hansraj, Bygott, Earl and Van der Weyer.
Thank you for that. So we'll move on to declarations of interest. Do any members have any declarations of interest they wanted to make clear? Councillor Richard Stobart.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I'd like to remind the committee that I'm a board member of South Cambridgeshire Investment Partnership, which does get a mention in the corporate plan.
Lovely, thank you for that. Any other members? Councillor Bradnam.
Just ask a question,
Yeah.
Chair. The budget will affect all of us as ratepayers. So
agreed.
do we just have a global acceptance that that's...
Yes, agreed. Yeah, I think you're right, Councillor Bradnam. Yeah. So if Councillor Hobro.
Just out of an abundance of caution to mention that through this council I'm a non-exec director of Street Housing, which also is mentioned in the corporate plan. Thanks.
Thank you for that. If any other declarations become apparent during the meeting, just raise them at any time. So if we move on to agenda item 4, minutes of the previous meeting. Pages 5 to 18. Does anybody have any comments on the minutes? Councillor Bradnam.
Thank you, Chair. I had a number of small, just typos and things which I have raised with Natalie Gandy. They don't change the meaning, it's just they correct some things. So it's just, I've given the list to her.
Thank you for going about it in that way, that's brilliant. Any other amendments to the minutes? Questions or queries?
That was on the November minutes.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
December minutes look fine to me.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to agenda item 5, public questions. Do we have any public questions? No, so none of those have been submitted. So we can now move on to the substantive part of the agenda. So item 6 is the draft budget 26-27, pages 19 to 84. Who would like to start on this? Councillor Bradnam.
Thank you, Chair. I may come back again, if I may, later on, but just one thing I wanted to raise. So bearing in mind, we're looking at this with a view to it going to Cabinet. And on page 35, which is the section about taxi licensing and the costs associated with that, I noted that in the commentary on the right-hand side, it talked about the fact that there was a lot of work going through licensing at the moment, and that resourcing levels are very stretched and staff are being diverted from other areas to manage this workload. And the proposal was, as current workload is not sustainable with no sign of numbers abating, the proposal's been recommended to increase the establishment up to 3 full-time equivalents. And I just wanted to understand what, if anything, do we understand to be the reason for that increase in work going through licensing? I'm not sure I understand it from the narrative.
Yeah, interesting, Councillor Brennan. I'd also highlighted the second paragraph down under taxi licensing as well. I weren't quite sure on the figures there. Councillor John Williams, shall I come to you in the first instance? Okay, yeah.
Rob Lewis.
Yeah. Yeah, please speak, Rob. We can't hear you, Rob, I don't think.
Good evening, everybody. I hope you find you well. Just to give you a really brief précis of what's happening is just we are getting significant numbers of taxi drivers that are coming to us for taxi licences. Part of the issue is what's going on nationally, where some local authorities aren't able to provide that service, and we are being inundated with applications.
Sorry, Chair, sorry to interrupt. Rob didn't introduce himself, so for people that are watching...
My sincere apologies. It says Rob Lewis, I'm Service Manager for Commercial and Licensing, and I'm here to cover for both annual leave
yeah,
today.
thank you. Lovely.
Thank you for that. Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, Rob. But sorry, are you saying that taxi drivers nationally are coming to us to be licensed?
Yes.
But isn't there that triumvirate where the operator, the vehicle, and the driver have to be licensed by the same authority? So does that...
So we're getting more vehicles as well.
From elsewhere?
Yes, and taxi drivers and vehicle operators are able to do that, to go to other local authorities for licensing, and we seem to be the preferred choice at the moment.
So is that because something's happened at Wolverhampton then? Because that's where everybody else, where they used to go before?
I'm aware. There's going to be a number of reasons, down to like cost, because we are cheaper than others for licensing. We are more efficient with what we do, and then there is the preferred choice and recommendations that other taxi drivers, by word of mouth, are sending those drivers to us.
Right. I would like some briefing on that, separate to this committee.
Yeah.
I think it would be helpful to have a briefing on that, because that practice of being cheaper than everybody else creates a situation where the licensing authority, in the geography of where the operation's happening, cannot normally monitor, because, sorry, if we just take the previous scenario where drivers locally, operators locally, and local vehicles were being licensed in Wolverhampton just by virtue of a county boundary handover process, which we at the time felt was unhelpful because it meant that we, as the licensing authority, were not Wolverhampton, as the licensing authority, were not able to monitor and didn't monitor vehicles working in our South Cambs district. And we felt that was leading to a situation of reduced oversight.
Okay.
So I would be worried if it appeared, just by some happenstance of our charging regime, that people are now doing that with us and maybe operating vehicles elsewhere.
Agreed. So
and are we suggesting that our enforcement officer goes scampering all over the country to enforce elsewhere? No, we're not. So I just think I would like separately, I'd like some
a briefing on that.
Explanation of that, please.
Yeah. I mean, can I add to, I think I've made some notes on this, on the same point as Anna. So, because we've said currently the workload is not sustainable. So I was wondering, do we have figures of what the likely indirect costs are? Is that what you were saying, basically? Yeah. And maybe like the net income as well, I think I'd noted, yeah. To be included in these figures, is that possible to do?
So the cost of the extra members of staff versus
the
relative income.
The income and yeah. So I think Rob is nodding his head. So that would be possible to get those figures. Yeah. Councillor Williams, is it on this point or? Yeah.
Yes, just in relation to the licensing, the taxis, because I was on licensing committee and sat on the appeals where quite often we had the Wolverhampton related issues. And part of that was as well, in my view, it was a bit of a soft touch council for getting licenses. So being the most popular is sometimes a bit nervous. So I think something needs to be done as well to reassure members and residents, but also to bear in mind how it's affecting when it comes to appeals. And are we seeing an increase in appeals? Because whilst I know we can recover the costs for the licence issue, I don't know if that side is something that's recoverable, but officers we may be able to do that, I don't know.
Okay. Rob, did you want to come back on that at all? Did you have anything else to add?
Sorry, I'm just still thinking about what Councillor Williams has said there and just making sure I'm taking the right notes.
Lovely. Okay, so I think what we'll do is we'll come back with some sort of briefing on that issue and the figures that have been required by Councillor Bradnam and myself. Lovely. Okay. I've got Councillor Peter Fane and then Councillor Stobart. So Councillor Peter Fane.
Thank you, Chair, and my apologies for appearing online. I was looking at the figures on page 19, the proposed budget position for each directorate, and that does show some remarkable variations. If we vary the 2024-25 outcome against the proposals for 26-27, because those are the latest actuals that we have, significant increases might be expected in climate, waste and environment. I think the significant reduction in the housing directorate is compatible with what seems to be happening this year, so that's probably okay. I don't think any of us will be too surprised that the figures for shared planning shows a 200% increase on the actuals for the latest available year. We can think of all sorts of reasons, but I do think it's important that the notes should properly explain that, because otherwise people will be inclined to suggest other reasons for it. And we need to also bear in mind that we have had some changes that have affected our recruitment and retention in that sector. And people might be inclined to link it to that, whereas I suspect that is not really the case. I have looked through the more detailed and I can begin to see what the reasons might be, but I just think it should be explained in the notes.
Thank you for that. Councillor Williams, did you want to comment on that?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Well, this is down to the fact that we got some money in this financial year for about 5 million for the water efficiency programme, and it wasn't spent. So it's been put in reserves and it will be spent next year, which is why we've seen a doubling in the planning budget for next year, because it includes this 5 million from this year for the water efficiency programme.
So,
Sorry,
yeah,
Chair.
I think you're going to say you want that indicated in the papers. Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I'm sure we can do
yeah,
that. Yeah,
happy to do that.
it's already in there, I understand.
Okay.
Sana.
Okay. Yeah. Councillor Fain, did you want to come back on that?
Well, yes, I accept it's no doubt in there, and I should no doubt have spotted it, but I think we have to accept that this will be a public document, and that it may be helpful if the summary and the notes at this stage just make a brief reference to that.
Thank you for that. Councillor Williams has noted that, I think. Yeah. Lovely. Councillor Richard Williams, did you want to speak on this point, or?
No, I just had some other general questions about.
Okay, I'll come back to you if that's okay. Councillor Stobart.
Chair, thank you. I had a bunch of things, maybe 5 or so, but if I just take perhaps 2 to start with, would that be
great,
okay?
Yeah.
So page 26, this is the notes on the data and intelligence team. Okay. This is, there looks to be a significant plan in place to expand a team that we've already seen delivering significant value. So, for example, LIFT, we've talked a lot about the LIFT programme. The LIFT programme is delivering nicely. So it would be helpful, I think, given this budget request, to get an understanding of where does this end up, what kind of team capability do we have at the end of the budget period, and perhaps going into 26, 27, and what are the headlines around this. So it's really just a commentary on what's an exciting area of the council's activity. There is a significant budget request, so what does it get us? So that was my first question.
Yeah, let's take that one first,
Okay.
and then I'll come back to you. So who did you like me to? Anne Ainsworth, is she online? Yep, lovely. Anne Ainsworth.
Hello, and thank you, Chair. Thank you for the question. So, yes, this is an incredibly important team and function, as we've spoken about before. And what we've been looking to do is embed the team over the last 12 months. And as you know, we had some really key areas that we wanted them to focus on, and that has included the LIFT programme. What we've also begun to do over the last few months is look at areas of particular speciality. So some of these things we're bringing together posts or pieces of work that we'd identified in other teams that had a very significant part of their role was around data and intelligence, or indeed we'd identified that there might be a gap and we wanted to create a data and intelligence role around that. So some of this actually isn't necessarily always new funding. Some of this is about also bringing the team together and consolidating the team. We are looking for some additional funding that links to developing out the LIFT project and is adding in an apprenticeship role into there, so that, as you know, part of our success with LIFT, a lot of that is about being able to call and contact people directly to give them the reassurance that it is the council that they're talking to, and to give them the opportunities to look at how they might be able to claim the benefits they're entitled to. And there's a large administrative role to that. So we wanted to make sure that we could continue with some of that broader partnership work and engagement and being out in the community, as you know the project is, but also be able to provide that resource for that administrative side. As part of the data and intelligence work as well, we've also been focusing on climate, environment and waste, and we are looking to create a post that focuses around the business side for the district as well. So that's really where we're looking to take this team over the coming months.
Thank you for that. Councillor Stobart.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a nice summary without going into really intricate details. It's that kind of consolidation and progress which comes over. So the talk of apprenticeships just provokes another question, which is perhaps generally across apprenticeships. The purchase of good educational support for apprenticeship programs is one of the challenges of running apprenticeships. Education providers have to be chosen carefully. I'm wondering, is that kind of acquisition process of educational support for apprenticeships going well? What are the risks around it, particularly for such an important role or important function as this one?
Thank you. Did you want to come on? Did you want to take that, or Jeff Membry online?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My apologies. I was getting problems turning my camera on there, so I apologise.
Could you just, sorry, Jeff, could all speakers just introduce themselves? We've just had a note from someone online just asking that all speakers introduce themselves. If you do that, that'd be great.
Yes, good evening, Chair. Good evening, members. My name is Jeff Membry. I'm the Head of Transformation and People at South Cambridgeshire, and apprenticeships would fall under my remit. I think members will be aware of the fact that we've done an awful lot of work on apprenticeships over the last couple of years, and we've been incredibly successful. Certainly, the environment around apprenticeships is constantly evolving, and we're constantly reviewing the support that we're providing. And I think a report went to Employment and Scrutiny Committee a few months ago, detailing that in a little bit more, more detail. A lot of the focus at the moment is around changes due to emerging technology. There's a new apprenticeship due to come out around AI, for example, which is something that we're looking at. And we've been very fortunate in so much as the management team at South Cambs have been very keen to ensure that we use apprenticeships appropriately, and we don't end up finding ourselves in a position where we hand back significant amounts of money to the government from the apprenticeship levy. I don't know if that answers your question, or whether you want some more details in a particular area.
Councillor Stobart.
Through you, Chair. Jeff, thank you for the comment. It was just a concern. I know that sometimes purchasing the right kind of educational support for an apprenticeship can be challenging. But I think from those comments, and perhaps we don't need to dig any deeper, that you've got it under control and are aware that is a kind of key area for management attention. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll move on to another speaker, and then I'll come back to you, Richard. Okay. Councillor Richard Williams, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just got 3 questions, which hopefully are quite short. So page 29 of the pack, within the Appendix 1, elections, there's nothing. I assume that's an oversight. I wonder if you could clarify why there's nothing in the budget for elections, given we've got district elections this year. So that was one.
Let's take that one, actually. We'll start with that one. Fasana?
Thank you, Chair. I'm Fasana Ahmed, S151 officer. Just to explain that the elections are funded by reserves and therefore are not shown in this version of the pack, but since then I have revised the version to make it more transparent.
Thank you for that. Councillor Richard Williams.
Thanks, that's useful. Just maybe a similar point to the point that Councillor Stobart just made, but page 51, in procurement, there's a little note which said budgeted costs for an apprentice have been aligned to the appropriate service, which accounts for the change in budget in 26-27. It's about a £50,000 rise. So I was wondering I don't know if the apprentice costs 50,000 or whether there's some other reason why it's jumped up by 50,000. So I wondered if that could be explained a bit more.
Councillor Williams, John Williams, or Fasana?
that will also include on costs, and it's obviously a 1-year cost as well.
Okay.
But I'll double check whether
Fasana,
anything else is.
yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, just so we can hear. Yeah.
That would include on costs as well, and therefore that would be an additional rise.
All right. Okay. Thank you. And then just finally, slightly more general question, but page 65, legal services. So there's quite a jump up in legal services. Now, I know that's because, as I understand it, we now have an in-house monitoring officer. But I was just wondering if that could be broken down a bit more so we could see what the internal costs are and what the costs of the contribution to 3C legal services is, because there has been quite a step up in those costs, and I think it would be useful if that could be broken down a bit more.
Councillor John Williams.
Thank you, Chair. We could try to explain that in the narrative, if that would be useful.
I think if it can be explained somewhere what the internal bit is and what the contribution is, that would help. So yeah, narrative or in the budget, fine.
So we'll take that as a recommendation, yeah, to be added. Yeah, lovely. Thank you for that. Do we have any other speakers on this? Councillor Lehman.
Thank you, Chair. I have a few questions. On page 33, which is the environment and waste section, I was looking at the zero carbon communities scheme, and there's quite a jump from the probable outturn in 25 to 26. There is a note that says a new combined climate and nature strategy has been proposed for recommendation, with funding of 304,000 coming from the renewables reserve starting in 26-27. What is it that's in that 304,000? What's that comprised of, please?
Councillor John Williams.
I can answer that. It will be coming as a separate report to Cabinet. We decided that we needed to, it's very important as part of our corporate plan, being green to our core, and therefore it's very important that we up our game, as it were. And as you know, we are looking at using some of the renewable reserves that are available to us to enable us to step up on our green policies. And that report will be coming to, our sustainable policy will be coming to, will be coming to here. No, we'll be going to the Environment Committee, and then we'll be going to full council. So the details of the actual spend will be in that report.
Councillor Lehman.
Thank you. It'd be interesting to see what those plans are, please. My other question is a much broader one, which is that I'm wondering where, if at all yet, we will see any costs for local government reorganisation in this budget, whether it's sort of smattered across lines or whether it's something that we expect to hit post 26-27.
Councillor John Williams.
That's because we're not fully, we're at this moment, we're not in the position to be able to identify those costs. So far, we've managed to contain any costs associated with the local government review within existing budget. But clearly for next year, there will need to be, we will need to ring fence some money from our reserves for that, but that has not been calculated yet. And obviously, coming from reserves won't affect the council tax.
Councillor Lehman.
So do we need to make any sort of provision in there for that?
Yeah, we will. Yes. We will be making a provision for that in due course, yes.
Within
but
this
for the
budget?
purposes of this, it doesn't, because it will be taken from our reserves, we're not actually going to need to account for it in this budget.
Would it be possible to put a note in the text at the beginning explaining that? Because I think people will be interested in how that work I mean, obviously it's a bit of a how long is a piece of string question at the moment because we don't really know what it would be, but we do know that there will be some costs. And presumably we're not getting national grant for it. We're getting no support from the national government for this process. So I think in transparency, perhaps we should have something to say that we anticipate some costs. We're providing X amount, but it's a guess at the moment.
Can I just bring in the Chief Executive just to clarify for me? Thanks. It's okay.
Thank you, Chair. Liz Royce,
Thank you.
Chief Executive. So it's a really good question, Councillor Leeming, and obviously there are a number of kind of variables. The first variable is which version of local government reorganisation is implemented, because the different options have different implementation costs. And the second key question is how the costs will be split. So there are different examples from around the country of different councils contributing different proportions. So for example, in Surrey, the county council is contributing 80% and the districts are contributing 20%. In other places, it's been 50-50. I was just on a call today about North Yorkshire, where the county council contributed 100% of the cost. So it's really, it's kind of how long is a piece of string, really. But what we will do is kind of identify a reserve so that we're clear that we do need some money and give some, I suppose, intent to the fact that we will most likely be spending some money, but we're not exactly sure what the totality of it will be. In terms of the central government, there is no further funding from central government for any of the implementation costs.
Can I ask, will that be identified in this report?
So, the report that comes to Cabinet and Council has a section of reserves, so it will be, quite clear.
So it will be identified within reserves in that. So I think that's the recommendation that Councillor Lehman is making, that we can.
Thank you. I appreciate that we can't measure what the costs will be, but we do know for certain that there will be costs. And so I think we have to acknowledge that, whether it's in writing or in some estimate. I think it would be transparent to say that this is a cost that the council will face in the future, and it's not of our choice, but it's there.
Councillor John Williams.
Yeah, I think for the purposes of this report, which is just about the service heads' budgets, you know, that's why it's not here. But I take your point that maybe we should refer to it.
Thank you for that. Councillor Bradnam, on this point,
This point. This is a pre-scrutiny committee of papers that are going to Cabinet.
Yes.
And I'm just slightly concerned to hear that something different might be going to Cabinet than what we've seen.
Okay. So
I just wondered whether anybody could explain why reserves were said to be going to Cabinet. I don't know if Liz wants to.
So I think what I understood from Fasana is that there would be a report documenting the reserves and how they're allocated alongside this. Is that right? Did you want to come in, Fasana? Or?
That's correct. So the main report that would come includes the updated MTFS reserves and the detailed budget packs, which is being scrutinised today.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Bradnam? Yeah. Councillor Lehman.
Thank you. On the same point, presumably the reserves note explanation will be coming to full council when we have the full budget meeting.
That is correct.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that. Councillor Lehman, did you have another point?
No, I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Hobro.
Thank you, Chair. So I had 3 different questions, if that's okay.
Yep, we'll take them individually.
One at a time, okay.
Yeah.
So the first one was, so page 37 under climate, environment and waste. Really just to understand the situation with respect to the large increase in the cost for domestic waste collection. And I think what it's saying is that this 3.6 million increase will be covered by the additional revenue funding within the local government settlement. I want to check that I've understood that correctly. And also just to probe on the further comments in that box about the extended producers' responsibility scheme and the volatility in open market prices for recycled materials, and how these are likely to affect our ability to cover these additional waste collection costs in the medium term.
Okay, thank you for that. If we take that first, Councillor John Williams, did you want to comment first or bring an officer in?
Yeah, Mike Parsons.
Yeah, Mike Parsons online. Yeah, if you could just introduce yourself and.
Hello, yes, thanks very much for that question. Mike Parsons here, Operations Manager for Greater Cambridge Shared Waste Service. There are a number of points there to address. Obviously, we've got the increased payments coming from the extended producers' responsibility, which will significantly increase our income into the authority. But expenditure has obviously been hit by the increase in recycling costs of disposal. So those are sort of netting off against each other. I can't remember what was the third question? Sorry, Councillor.
Yeah, so my initial question really was whether the 3.6 million is covered by the additional revenue funding in the local government settlement, or whether we have to recover it individually as a council. That was sort of my first question.
I don't actually know the answer to that question without checking. So I will check with our fellow officers and we'll come back to you on that if that's okay.
And the final question was just about the picture in the medium term.
Yeah, can I just come back to the other point? I will come back to you on that, Councillor Hobro. Liz Watts.
Thank you, Chair. So food waste is a significant extra cost, as it is for all authorities nationally. That's a new burden that comes in from the 1st of April. Initially, that new burden was going to have ring-fence funding attached to it from MHCLG. There's been huge amounts of kind of toing and froing with MHCLG about how the funding is coming, whether it's coming, the totality of the funding. In the funding settlement that has just been announced, that funding is now being wrapped up in the overall settlement. So we can't identify what has been allocated for food waste. So while we're fairly confident that it's broadly covered, although not necessarily completely, we can't say specifically what the funding source is.
Thank you for that. That's helpful. Councillor Hobro.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that answers the question very well. I was a bit puzzled when I read the information here, and because it's such a large increase, I think it would be great to have that as clear as possible as it's presented. Is it okay if I move on to my next question? Thank you. So this is quite a general question about a revenue generation from the services that we're operating. So in environment, climate and waste, then I mean there are quite a few services that have significant revenue generation in that column. Obviously, the commercial waste collection is the really big contributor there, and clearly we have licensing and planning as other areas of significant revenue generation. So my general question really was, in terms of the picture of how we're developing our revenue collection as part of the strategy of balancing all of these books, is our picture of revenue generation development, is that portrayed anywhere in these documents? Because I couldn't really find it. I realised that the appropriate place might not be in this budget, but I wanted to make sure that we can understand where we're going with revenue generation and what we're developing and the areas that we expect to be able to develop.
Councillor John Williams.
Yeah, I don't think this is, I don't think this is the report to do that. You know, it's part of our corporate plan, which is then reflected in the medium-term financial strategy. So, I mean, I appreciate what you're saying. You want to see the bigger picture, but this isn't the document for that. But as I say, I think the corporate plan is basically the place to see what our policies are aiming to do in terms of revenue collection, rather than this document is about what each service head is likely to receive in terms of income to offset their expenditure, but the actual bigger picture is something, as I say, part of our corporate plan.
Because just on that point that you've made around, because I also, like you, made a note on it's page 36, that because we're alluding to there be sort of us generating that money, aren't we? The 400 and 1100,000. I wondered if we could have sort of figures around, because that seems a lot of money to generate, but you know, what sort of income would we need to generate that amount to make that realistic?
Okay, well, yeah. This has been a lot of work's been done by Jeff and the transformation team on that. So I don't know if Jeff wants to come in on this specific point about income generation for waste.
Lovely, Jeff Membry. So we'll come back to you, Councillor Hobray.
Thank you, Chair. Part of the transformation programme overall, when we're reviewing and working with services, is looking not only at making savings, but also at the potential to generate income. Now, in waste, there were significant opportunities to modernise and improve the work already being done within the commercial waste service. I think it was generating about £2 million a year profit anyway. But the two teams worked very closely together to look at what opportunities there might be to change the services that we're providing, change the charging arrangements so that we were still competitive, but also making sure that we charge appropriately depending upon market level. We did some market research with customers to find out what they wanted, and a lot of them were prepared to pay more if we could provide them with more information about the waste that they were depositing with us, because actually it was useful for them when they were completing their government returns. So a lot of this did take some investment, but we're not talking about hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of investment. We're primarily talking about officer time, resources and research, although there was the purchase of a new computer program for waste. I'm afraid I don't have the annual charge to hand, but I can provide that at a later date.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Heather Williams, did you want to come in on this point specifically, or was it something?
Yes, Chair, if that's okay.
Just briefly, because I'm conscious I've already interrupted Councillor Hobray.
Hopefully it'll be brief. So it's on page 36, because if I read the second paragraph, it reflects what Mr Membry has said about they've engaged over the last 12, 18 months, identifying opportunities to increase ongoing profits by up to 620,000. But I think it's important to remember that it's a joint service. So that 620,000, is that actually our share, or is that the service as a whole? Because then you're looking at over £1 million if it's doubled. And either way, what is the gross income required to clear that sort of profit?
Thank you for that, and that's sort of what I was alluding to about how much income do we need to generate. But did you want to come back on this, Councillor John Williams, or?
Well, just on the broader point, that if we've yet to come to the corporate plan, but on page 102 of the pack, that sets out our corporate objectives regarding income generation. So when we come to that, you'll see what the objectives are.
Shall I bring in Jeff Membry? Did you want to take Councillor Heather Williams' point?
Councillor Williams is right. It's a shared service. That's so we would have our share of that 600,000. Unfortunately, it's not doubled. Again, I'm afraid I don't have the detailed information about what the costs are, but it was primarily officer time rather than external costs.
Councillor Heather Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Very quickly, can I suggest that that's included, because that sort of suggests in this report that 620 is South Cam's share of it, and appreciate it might be officer time. I think given commercial should include the gross profit, gross income.
Yeah, Councillor Hobray, sorry to interrupt you.
Great. Well, thanks for the answers and for the pointer to that part of the corporate plan. Perhaps we'll come back to that later. Can I move on to my third question?
You may.
Thank you. This is much more specific. So in the transformation section, page 79, I was looking through the different various funds, and I noticed the community chest fund. It has a below inflation increase, which is about half the inflationary rate. It does occur to me that community chest is a very flexible fund. My feeling is it provides excellent value for money, and it allows funding to go directly to really small grassroots projects, and it's flexible in the sense that the committee gets to decide on a case-by-case basis where the money goes. So it allows us to spend, I think, in targeted ways, hopefully in ways that provide really good value for money for our residents. I'm a little bit concerned that the budget, which is already quite small, is not going up with inflation, especially when some of the other budgets, such as zero carbon, are much bigger and have larger increases. So I just wanted to check whether we are, so first of all, I mean, is the Community Chest Fund oversubscribed, or are we just about spending it all? And are we consciously winding it down slightly, or, you know, it just seemed a little bit odd that it wasn't quite keeping up with inflation.
Councillor John Williams.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Well, it's undersubscribed, basically. So most years we don't spend it all.
Councillor Hobro.
Okay, so it's good to know that. I mean, I promote it quite heavily in my ward. I kind of assumed everyone was doing that, but perhaps it's not so well promoted. So perhaps developing this question, and I could suggest that maybe there are ways we could promote community chest more widely for the whole district. I don't know if other councillors agree, but my feeling is that it is a really effective and flexible way of spending actually not much money to achieve things that are quite diverse.
Councillor John Williams.
Well, obviously, that's a question that the Grants Advisory Committee could look at. But to be honest with you, it is quite well advertised, and it's advertised in the magazine, which goes to every household. I think most members do push it at their parish council meetings. But at the end of the day, you know, if there aren't the schemes coming forward, we can't create those schemes. So, as I say, the fund that we have is sufficient for the schemes that we're being asked to fund.
Councillor Hobro, do you have anything?
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Okay, so I've got Councillor Paul Bearputt.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to follow up on Councillor Leaming's question earlier about the funding under the Zero Carbon Community Scheme and the additional £304,550.
Which page was this? Sorry.
So this is page 33.
33, yeah.
Just to understand this a bit better, so corporate plan has reduction in emissions of 75% by 2030 compared with 2018. I don't know how far progressed we are with that to date. I probably should know, being on the Climate and Environment Advisory Committee. And I just wanted to understand, is some of that funding available? Is some of that funding there for achieving that target? Obviously, the target cuts across various departments, but particularly waste and the waste delivery vehicles. So I guess what I'm trying to get to is it's an important target. Is the budget available there to meet that target?
Okay, Councillor John Williams, is the budget there?
Well, that's the purpose of increasing the budget for the renewables reserve for the climate and nature strategy. And it then goes up again the following year. So we look at another around 50% increase in this budget for 27-28. It's a 2-year programme. It's a shame that we don't have the strategy here, that's not come before you yet. But you'll see that when it does, that it's a very thorough strategy, looking at all aspects of the council's business and how we can improve climate and nature so far as the council has control over. I can't really to say any more really, rather than I can't, you know, obviously I can't go into the strategy as yet because it's not been published.
Lovely. Councillor Bradham, did you want to speak on this point, or?
Oh, it's on another point.
Lovely.
So
I've got you listed. Thank you. Councillor Bearfarm.
Yeah, no, thank you. I look forward to seeing that report.
Yeah. Lovely. Okay. I've got Councillor Heather Williams.
Thank you. I'm conscious that I sort of went last, but Councillor Drew has attended, so as a committee member, if he wants to go ahead of me. It was just to know, actually got a question on the strategy, just on something that Councillor John Williams just said to clarify. This strategy, is it about the council's own assets, or is it about the council, you know, to be spent in the council area, or is it money being spent on the council itself? I don't know if he's caught the question.
Eddie's here, who's the author of the strategy. So.
Okay, Ellie, did you want to answer that?
Yes, thank you. I'm Ellie Haynes. I am the Climate Change and Sustainability Manager here at Salcam. So, so the strategy contains the draft strategy sets out a whole range of actions which have been costed and factored into this budget, and that contains actions which both relate to the council's own estate and operations as well as the wider district. So it contains actions which relate to supporting the district to reduce its emissions, as well as looking at how the council can reduce its own emissions on its estate and operations. Does that answer your question?
Councillor Heather Williams.
Yes, although I'm typical number nerd, I'd like a ratio of where the split is to residents. So I appreciate the strategy might not be, you know, for us yet, but it'd be good to have some of those sorts of things, so we can see exactly where that money's spent before decisions are made. Chair, it was just to let you know, obviously in the process of coming up with our group amendments, I have raised some sort of questions of clarification, a couple of small ones just around text and suggestions. Rather than go through those, I know Fazana kindly gave me the answers earlier, but perhaps if we circulated them to committee and to Cabinet for their consideration.
More than happy to do that. Thank you. Okay, so I next have Councillor Stobart, then Councillor Bradnam.
Chair, thank you. So page 75, we're into the planning service budget here, and in particular under business operations, the funding for youth engagement service. This is perhaps where we focus a lot of our attention on youth engagement, is in what the planning service offers. It's very high profile and it works. But my question is around what other youth engagement budgeting is there elsewhere? Is this the only place? And is it possible for something like this to slice the budget the other way, according to objective, if you will, of its youth engagement, and to understand how that's distributed across the directorates to give a kind of global view? So that's I have another question, but let's deal with that.
Okay, yeah, I'll take that first, and then youth engagement. I don't know who wanted to talk. Heather, is that
Yeah,
you just
thank you.
introduce yourself. Lovely.
I will do. Thank you, Chair. So I'm Heather Jones, Deputy Director for Greater Cambridge Shared Planning. So just to confirm, the budget that's situated in the business operations section of our report is around all of the interns that we've had. So we have a number of interns over the summer, and they undertake a number of discrete pieces of work and support a number of areas, and that includes youth engagement service. The budget that you are referring to will sit in our built and natural environment team. So there is an element of budget in there that is for the youth engagement service and also the income that offsets the cost of delivery of that youth engagement service. So that sits in a different part. The business operations interns is specifically for short-term university graduates that come in and do discrete pieces of work for the planning service.
Thank you
I
for
hope that
Councillor.
answers your question. Thank you.
Councillor Stobart.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Heather, thank you for the explanation. Could I just cite one example of what I meant by youth engagement elsewhere? So, yeah, the environment and waste does engagement, and I can't be specific, but there have been, for example, when the Climate Advisory Committee met at in a village, Comberton Village College, there was an example of youth engagement, but in a different context. So it's trying to capture where our effort is and what the budget contribution is to things like that, and how is it connected? You know, does somebody oversee youth engagement and the various budgets allocated?
Heather, did you want to comment further on that?
I think that's a really interesting point. I don't think that we do that connection as yet, but I think that is something that we can take away and look at. So thank you for proposing it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Stobart, sounds like that recommendation has been taken on board.
Yes, and for which I'm grateful. Thank you. May I ask? I have a comment Please. And a final question. Page 80 under the allocation of voluntary sector grants, there's a mention of a number of beneficiaries from this under this item. One includes arts and minds. It's very understated, and I just really want to note that we've talked sometimes about arts and culture strategy. There's a whole bunch of things that that the council does, and this is a kind of almost a hidden thing. There's of course public art under planning and so on, but I just wanted to point out that here we are engaged with arts in relation to mental health, and that's to be warmly welcomed. So let me just ask the final question, which is around, and I'm referring to page 83, the ICT item, and it's more like a process question. If during the course of the year, maybe it's the data team, requests some particular software functionality which has to be delivered by the shared services, how is an individual project proposal, a proposition for delivery of some functionality, how is that actually handled? Is it covered by this budget? What's the process, and how is it funded?
Councillor John Williams.
Thank you, Jay. Can I ask Jeff to...
yes, Jeff Membry.
Yes, through you, Chair. There's a process by which the service that wants to introduce a new system writes up a brief proposal that then goes to a meeting of the 3 councils and 3C ICT where it's prioritised because there's a lot of demand for new systems. Part of that process is producing a budget case. So it'll only be implemented if actually it delivers either significant customer improvements or it delivers savings or a combination of both. There isn't a separate fund for IT projects or significant IT projects. So a service that wants to introduce that after doing this initial work would have to make a bid, which would come through this process through the bids and savings part of the process. But it's a joint prioritisation based around the impact that systems will have on efficiency, improvements for customers and savings.
Thank you for that. Councillor Stobart.
Yeah, through you, Chair, that was very clear. We know that that route exists, and that was a nice answer. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Did you have any further questions, Councillor Stobart?
Chair, no, I don't. Not on this section. I do for later on.
Yes, yes. Thank you for that. Councillor Bradnam.
Thank you, Chair. This question relates to under the head of housing, page 57, and it looks at the budget we have spent in previous years on homelessness, top line, and projects an amount that we might need for 2026-27. And it also talks about the amount of government grant that we've received in our current year. And I just wondered if we could have an explanation of why. Is it because we've received funding against the cost in 2025-26 that the projected need for funding in 26-27 is so high, because we're not sure that we get that government funding back to cover it, because it's jumped by I'm not very good at maths, but more multiples of 10 for the budget. We've gone, sorry, to be clear, the estimate was 63,000, probable outturn 70,000, but we're estimating a needed gross expenditure of 1,894,000.
Thank you for that. Councillor John Williams, did you want to comment on that, or did you want to bring Peter Campbell?
I'll ask Peter to come in.
Yeah, lovely. Peter, if you just introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, Peter Campbell, Head of Housing. Yes, Councillor, so it is to do with the amount of grant, and the amount of grant that we receive from homelessness, for homelessness and associated services has varied significantly over previous years and continues to do so. The government announced a new method of calculation for this year, which may explain the variance. If you'd like some more details, I can provide those outside the meeting.
Sorry, can I just, sorry, through you,
Please,
Chair,
yeah.
thank you. I just wanted to understand if the amount of homelessness is, broadly speaking, not going to go less, but it's likely to be similar or slightly more. And so our actual costs have been around the tens of thousands, whereas we have to project forward the potential costs as the actual costs in the anticipation of receiving a government grant back if we're lucky. Is that why the costs are so much greater in the gross expenditure?
But well, it's only only in 25-26 the expenditure has gone down. So if you look for the actuals for the previous year, for 24-25, and project it forward to 26-27, so the blue column on the left and the grey figure on the right, they're roughly comparable.
So why have we got the gross expenditure in the middle of 1.894 million? Sorry.
Because so yes. Yes, so what we're comparing is the net. So we have an amount of expenditure, we get significant grant from the government, so the next expenditure is just short of £250,000 in the right-hand column.
Okay, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I think we can, Councillor Bradden, we can take that offline and maybe check those figures. Yeah, Councillor.
Just to clarify, Chair, I think the councillor is trying to compare net with gross.
Sorry, what? Sorry, the words I said explained what I was asking, and I think that's what you and Peter Campbell are both saying. In other words, we have to project forward that the potential cost could be big number. But we're hoping that we will get back government funding similar to that which we've received in 25-26, in 26-27, which will bring our net back to this figure. Is
No,
that...
sorry, can I clarify? So the government have changed the methodology of the grant for this year, and it's it doesn't vary wildly between year and year, years and years. So we're fairly safe that the ongoing homelessness money will continue for future years. We don't just take a punt on it.
Okay, that's the answer to the question then, that we're confident that we've got enough money to cover homelessness. Thank you.
Sure.
Great. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bradham. Did you have any other questions at all? Thank you. Do we have any other speakers on this item? Councillor Stephen Drew.
Okay, great. Thank you. Can I go to page 83? And I'm looking at the second line in the table, which is contact centre. I suppose really my question is going to be, there is a fairly significant increase in the funds being put towards the contact centre, and I don't feel that the text fully explains this. There is obviously a difference of around about 300,000 between the original estimate of cost of 25-26 and the probable outturn. But the line in the text on the right says the increase in the 2025-2026 probable outturn is due to a change in the telephone contract, which I assume is telling me that there was an increase in spending of 26,780 on the telephone contract. But the difference between the original estimate and the probable outturn is much larger than that. And then the bit going on the text says the increase in the 26-27 budget includes a transfer of a post in the policy and performance. Again, perfectly reasonable explanation. But you've got an original estimate for 25-26 of, as it says in there, 1.426, spending of 1.723, and then an intended spending in 26-27 of 1.779. I just don't feel that the text provides sufficient explanation of the increase in costs. So perhaps some more information could be provided as to the cause of the increase in the cost.
Councillor John Williams.
Well, just I think you're right.
I was going to ask
we'll take that away and update the text.
Yeah, we'll update the text.
I mean, I mean, it's a contact centre. It's a marvellous thing. It provides services and contacts for people. So therefore, if the money needs to be spent, it needs to be spent. I just think there's a disparity there. Okay, that'll be it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers on this item? Okay. So if we don't, are we happy that we've done what we've been asked to do in the recommendation, which is on page 19, I think, if I remember rightly. Let me just go to that. Yeah, item 3. So I think we have considered the report and scrutinised that, ready for it to go to Cabinet and then on to full council. Yeah. Sorry, Councillor Brad.
Additionally, we have made some recommendations for alterations to Cabinet.
Agreed. Yeah. Did anybody have anything else to add? If not, we will move on. Thank you for that. Okay, so we will move to the next agenda item, which is item 7, the Conservative Group budget proposals for 26-27, and that is found in the supplementary papers. So let me just bring that up. Who would like to start on this? And I should say that I'll be directing questions to Councillor Heather Williams on this. Did we have any questions, any comments at all? I don't have any. Yeah. Okay. Good. We will move on. So if we come back to the agenda, so I'm just flicking between screens here. We'll come on to agenda item 8, which is the draft 26 to 27 corporate action plan, pages 85 to 118. Who would like to start on this? Councillor Stobart.
Thank you, Chair. So it's a point on page 93 of the agenda pack, page 5 of the corporate plan, under item 6. 6B, by running community liaison meetings and forums where significant new developments are planned. So my understanding of that is we will get together interest groups, be they parish councils or community groups, in order to discuss, for example, the impact of adjacent new developments that could be of any sort. I think the outcome run community forums is almost a repetition. What could be, for example, a useful output of that is, for example, an action plan. So we would measure the success of this by what the community forum discussed, but actually proposed by way of action. So I think a slightly more solid outcome would be more appropriate. You know, if such a group was meeting and they never proposed any actions, we might conclude that there was something wrong. So maybe a point of detail, but perhaps tightening up on the kind of outcome might actually focus the attention on how to make these things happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you for that. Councillor John Williams, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, thank you. I can see that obviously the monitoring of the forums, and I think you refer to forums like Cambridge East Forum and the Northstowe Forum and other forums that we have. Are you suggesting that we should have? I'm trying to understand how we would measure the performance of those forums, because they can be very different because they are dealing with different things a lot of the time. Take, for example, the Cambridge East Forum. Cambridge East Forum is dealing with Marley and Sprinstead Village, and obviously eventually the airport development. But I'm not understanding what outcomes you want from that you can measure against, in some sort of performance table. I'm not sure how you'd be able to do that.
Councillor Stobart.
I understand the comment. So I was thinking of perhaps another type of community forum where, for example, a group of parish councils, and there is an example I can think of, a group of parish councils get together where there is a significant development taking place, and they meet and they propose actions and they do stuff. Now, I think for example, the Waterbeach Community Forum is an example of an opportunity for residents to understand what's going on. Rather more difficult. So maybe the measure of that is that it's taking place, but you'd also want to know that there was discussion and engagement. So for something like that, perhaps it's the number of people who show up and the kind of questions that get asked. Whereas with my example, which is around the A14 logistics, the fact that there is a group meeting and they are meeting regularly and they're proposing actions and doing stuff would be another way of assessing whether a community forum was working. But I think, how do we check that community forum is working is that general question which we ought to be able to address.
Lovely. Liz Watts is indicating to speak. Liz.
Thank you very much, Chair. I mean, I think it's a really good question, actually, and I'm wondering whether we could do something around sort of irregular, maybe annual satisfaction surveys from people who attend the fora. So I'm speaking to one councillor, from people who attend the fora, because they are all really different in their nature. And I'm not sure, you know, even if you had a really small number of people coming, it might still be a really valuable forum. So it's not just a numbers game. It's, I guess, about are we doing what, you know, people expect and want from the fora. So I don't want to make a commitment to that today because I've probably got a whole load of colleagues who are, you know, throwing their hands up in the air about how we would do that. But is that the sort of thing that you meant, Councillor?
Yeah, through you, Chair. Yeah, very much so. I mean, if you were to set up a forum and say, how do we measure the success of this? It may be people, it may be a degree of engagement, it may be a commitment to do something. So each one would have a different set of parameters. But I think it behoves us to check that they are working. Otherwise, you know, we're investing time for perhaps no benefit.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think that's reasonable. Councillor Anna Bradnam, you wanted to come in on this point.
I did. Thank you very much, Chair, because I chair the Waterbeach Community Liaison Forum. So I'm keen to ensure that it's productive and it's useful and it's recognised as being of value. So,
and what do you think would be a good measure of that?
What I'm thinking, as Liz has mentioned, I don't want to give the officers any extra work. But there are some metrics that we already gather. So, for example, already we have been able to run the Waterbeach Community Liaison Forum online as well as in person. We have a register of who comes in, and okay, that's numbers, but we also keep an online record on the website of questions that were raised during the meeting and that were answered during the meeting, and also questions that were answered and we have the manager of that meeting goes away and gets an answer and then puts it on the website. Now, the function of that is intricately linked to the stage of the development of Waterbeach Newtown. So there's an early stage when people have got lots of queries about how's it going to happen, when, what's going to happen about the drainage, what's going to happen about transport. Whereas later on, they're thinking about how is the school going to look? Where are we going to get the doctor's surgery? What will the provision be for the new town and the village? Those sorts of things. So I think there are metrics that we already gather in the process of running those meetings that could indicate the degree of public engagement, the number of people through the door, because we keep a register as people come in, and the purpose is that we get representatives from the developer, if necessary, the water board, you know, the drainage body, the school, the
breadth of that, yeah.
And the people who are involved in the development of the new town. Yeah. So the purpose is so that people can raise their questions and hear an answer on the day or be able to read it on the website. So I think it's an information exchange.
Yeah.
So that's quite hard to monitor, except in the terms of numbers.
So I think maybe post this meeting, if Councillor Stobart and Councillor Bradnam can liaise with Councillor John Williams and the Chief Executive to look at that, I think, and because it sounds like there's lots of things already there, and yeah.
Excuse me, can I suggest to me, because it is a planning?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
And of course the manager of that liaison.
Thank you for that. Yeah, we'll note that, Councillor Bradnam, as a recommendation of the meeting. Councillor Stobart.
Well, it was a useful discussion to have, I think I'm just casting my mind back a little when Gareth Bell was presenting on what kind of arrangements might we have under a subsequent to local government reorganisation. And the notion of, in a sense, ad hoc groupings of representatives around particular issues might become the mode. And so assessing the success or otherwise of such ad hoc groups, you might even think of them as like task and finish groups, I think would be a useful thing to be doing now as we anticipate that future. So,
thank you for that. I think that's been noted, and yeah, lovely. Thank you for that. Councillor Leeming.
I have two questions, but they're quite unrelated.
We'll take them individually.
I might start with the sort of dry one, really, which is on page 103. So there's a list of strategic indicators, and the report is incomplete. It says it will be reviewed following confirmation of local government outcome framework metrics expected in January 26. I was going to ask, what are the local government outcome framework metrics, and who will be sending them, and why don't we have them at the moment? Or perhaps we do. Perhaps they've arrived now because we're mid-January. So what are they? Where have they come from, please?
Councillor John Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Can I refer to Kevin on this?
You can indeed. Is that Kevin Ledger online?
Hi there. Yeah, I'm Kevin Ledger. I'm Senior Policy and Performance Officer and the author of this report. Yeah, so good question. The local government outcomes framework is something that's coming forward from government. And the idea behind it is that it will put forward a number of metrics that will allow comparison between councils in relation to a number of areas that government considers key for local councils to deliver. We saw a draft version of this in I want to say autumn, end of summer. No, I think it was autumn actually of last year. However, the framework is yet to be confirmed, and we received an email from MHCLG before Christmas saying, although we kind of had intended to confirm this at the end of 2025, this hasn't happened, and we know that local councils or local authorities are currently in the midst of corporate planning, business planning. So we will be looking to get the final version confirmed and out to councils in January. So that's kind of the detail around what that is and what the intention is behind it, and the timescales that we're currently waiting on. Please let me know if there's any further information you need.
Thank you for that. Councillor Leeming.
Thank you, Kevin. That's really interesting. Could I just sort of ask, are they things that we've measured in the past? The sorts of things that they've asked us to consult on? Have you been given any idea of what kind of metrics they might be, and how many are there? You know, is it going to be 5 or 10 things, or is there a whole suite of things that will be standardised across multiple councils?
So the draft included metrics that some of which were relevant to district councils and some of which would have been more relevant to county councils. So it was a fairly lengthy kind of document, and some of what was included we don't currently measure, but also we would it probably wouldn't be for us to measure. However, of those that were relevant to district level councils, a number of them were things that we are monitoring in one way or another already. For instance, things like our carbon emissions, measures around waste, those sorts of things. In relation to housing, I know that there was something in the draft around the percentage of not the percentage, the number of households leaving, or the number of families leaving B&B after more than 6 weeks, which is actually something that we already have reported in our quarterly performance report. So I can't guarantee that all of them will be things that we already measure, but certainly from having looked through that initial draft, what we found was that a number of those were things that we are already measuring.
Thank you for that, Councillor Leeming.
Thank you. That's really interesting, and it's quite encouraging that we're sort of measuring things that have been put forward as standard. I hope that we get it in time for this when the corporate plan comes to full council, so we can have a good look at what types of things they might be. I understand that's completely outside your control, but yeah, it would be great if we could see those along with the corporate plan. Thank you. It's a really interesting answer. My second question is to do with Appendix C, which is to do with the Youth Engagement Service. This is a really interesting report. Thank you for this. It's really lovely. So just an overview. It's the results of it's a series of questions that have been asked to children from primary schools between the ages of 10 and 12. It's 500 children attended those conventions. It's really heartening to see this. It's a real testament to our young people, particularly the level of compassion that sort of shows through this. There's a great concern over helping residents, older, disabled and vulnerable people, for instance. That's rated really highly. It's a lovely set of statistics. I was going to ask though, in addition to asking these relatively younger children, would we do, or have we done, these sorts of workshops with older young people? So, for instance, children at the end of secondary school, or perhaps at regional college or sixth form, because I think you may find that you get a more detailed response from young people that are nearing adulthood.
Thank you for that. I don't know who to come to that. John Williams, do you want to?
Only to say that obviously this was part of the Youth Engagement Service, as part of the planning engagement of young people. We as a council don't otherwise engage directly with students on a sort of more on a formal basis like this. I don't know if Kevin has got a comment.
Or Heather, I think maybe.
Or Heather, yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to add in. Our youth engagement service obviously tends to be limited simply because of the resources. So we only hold a number per year, and it's where we have head teachers who are receptive to us attending and going in and working with the young children, and we find that's predominantly primary school. However, we have done engagement with older children and college age as well, but it's a bit more sporadic and something that we can take on board and take back, Councillor Leeming, to see if we can ensure that we cover every age. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Leeming, did you want to come back on that at all?
Thank you, Heather. That would be really interesting, because I guess this sort of older teenage cohort is perhaps closer to voting, closer to being engaged in the democratic process themselves, maybe more aware of housing developments, etc., sort of around them. So I just think it would be really, really helpful to engage with that group of young people, because I think sometimes they offer a refreshing perspective. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Bradnam, you want to come in on this point? Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. I think it's a very good, on this report, it's, as you say, it's very heartening to see the support for all the people who they really, it's great to see that they're thinking about climate, they're thinking about vulnerable people, supporting households who are less well off. They're absolutely on it, which is lovely, and heartening. Having attended several of these in my role as chair of planning committee, so I have gone along to some of these, and part of the reasoning for perhaps that it hasn't been so easy to slot these into secondary school is because actually what I've seen is that the time and energy it takes to deliver this in a primary school, it can take a whole day. So it's going out to a planning development, seeing what they think about that, asking them to think about different aspects, coming back, doing something to do with planning, but also engaging them in this kind of questionnaire and giving them the forum in which they can answer those questions in a supported way. It takes time, and it's you know, it's a resource that we might find it hard to deliver, but also that schools haven't got that much time to give us as well. Nevertheless, this kind of thing can cross-cut a number of curricular purposes, which is they might find useful. But lastly, what I would say is I also went along to an awards ceremony when people who'd taken part in this gained certification for various different things, and that was very heartening too. And it really cements the value that our planning department put into this engagement, and I just wanted to applaud that, because I think it's why this district council and the planning department has won the awards it has, because they have worked so hard on youth engagement and making it as broad and inclusive as possible. So as you say, I think it relates to the amount of time that secondary schools have available to give to us. But well done, the team, anyway.
Thank you for that, Councillor Bradnam. Councillor Stobart.
Yeah, likewise. I think this is a fine piece of work with some excellent results. Now, could I just kind of extend the discussion a bit to say this could be an end in itself. In other words, the young people have engaged in a process of expressing their views, hearing the case, be able to make a decision about how to cast their vote. So that could be a very useful outcome in itself. But I wonder, they produce some fine information. Now we might say, well, is this a good sample of children? You know, what was their background? You know, how do we interpret this? But it's worth asking that question. If we were to get more of this kind of information, how could we use it to inform either the next stage of the process or something about, in this case, our corporate plan?
Yeah.
Because it's touching on, this is a family view, isn't it? This is young people, we're part of a family, and they're our residents. So what does it tell us about, you know, our corporate plan? So two things, you know, are we addressing that immediate requirement of, or the immediate interest of getting young people involved in the democratic process, and secondly, what do the results tell us?
Yeah, and I'm seeing people nodding and so forth, so I think, you know, recognising, you know, the work that's done here and how we might build on that, I think is what you're alluding to. Yeah, okay. Did I have any other speakers from the committee? Councillor Hobro.
Thank you, Chair. The first thing I want to say is that just looking down the list of key objectives here, I think this is a really well-balanced list of key objectives that reflects very well the main areas that we'd like to develop. I think this overall is a superb corporate action plan. I just want to congratulate the officers on making it all fit together so well. I had a question about, this is going back to Councillor Leaming's question about the strategic indicators at the end. And this is something I've raised in previous meetings in the context of our operational KPIs. So it does seem, and I do accept that these strategic indicators are provisional and that they're subject to change. But just to highlight something that I noticed, which is that I'm not sure that they are particularly well balanced across the objectives laid out in the plan above. And just to give an example, so under sustainable homes and vibrant places, then we have six indicators here, and 5 of them measure in some way the rate of house building, and the last one is a quality measure for energy efficiency. It does seem to me that that isn't a balanced set of indicators to reflect all of our objectives for sustainable homes and vibrant places. And part of what I'm saying here is about the measuring the sort of rate of production of something versus its quality. And I totally accept it's harder to measure quality than it is just to count the number of houses that we're building. On the other hand, I wondered if there are ways of making sure that that these strategic indicators, as well as they can do, reflect the balance of priorities that we've laid out in the report above. Thanks.
Thank you for that. I wonder if Kevin Ledger might be.
Yeah.
Kevin first. Kevin Ledger.
Yeah, more than happy to come in on that. Yeah, thank you for that comment. I think that that's certainly something that we can take into consideration as we're looking to finalise a list of strategic indicators for the new financial year, and also taking those LGOF, the local government outcome framework metrics, into account as well. I think it's a fair challenge. I think that the reason for it in that current list, which is largely the list from the current year, is because it was the first time that we'd introduced the idea of strategic indicators, and I think perhaps there's a little bit of refinement that can be done to try and improve the balance, but also I think that there are some things that are absolutely key to our corporate plan and the delivery of the objectives in our corporate plan that are perhaps more easily reported or better reported through a narrative, whilst in other areas it is kind of really clear that we can provide a numeric indicator to as a strategic indicator. So it's about trying to get that balance right. I think you're absolutely right to kind of raise it as a question, and it's something that we'll certainly consider as we continue to look to finalise that list for the new year.
Councillor Hobray.
Yeah, thanks. I totally appreciate that there are some of there are plenty of things in the plan that are really would be very hard to encapsulate in a number like this. So, and of course, it's important as long as there's awareness that these indicators are part of a wider assessment process, and that you know their status is sort of kept in balance with the other ways that we're assessing these things. That's great. So yeah, hopefully this is a good time to take another look at them now, since we're going to have to reassess them anyway for the LGOF metrics. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll come to Councillor Heather Williams, and then I'll come back to you, Councillor Stobart.
Thank you very much, Chair. You'll be pleased now, I'm not going to give my opinions on anything, but I did want to seek some clarification, Chair, on a couple of things, because throughout the document, quite often see we will work with partners to ensure that proposed development plans, safeguard, etc. So that's page 96. In other areas, we'll work with partners. And we know as well, the local plan coming up and everything, development is going to, I'm sure, play a heavy feature in how the administration delivers their corporate plan. However, I just wanted to seek reassurance, and I think it'd be a good idea to clarify in your document any intentions to do this, because it's come to light very, very recently that the council is selling in agreements access to planning committee. And as a planning committee member, I was quite upset to find out that my time was sort of being sold, essentially, with and I think it's really important that if that is going to be happening elsewhere, in any other committee, access to other committee time is going to be sold to developers or anybody else, that is included within the corporate plan, so we all know that as councillors, when we attend a meeting, is it happening because, as I personally got elected to represent residents, or are we being summoned to a meeting for commercial activity, or, as was the case, PSAA, where that is happening in the planning agreements? Because that's very uncomfortable for me. I appreciate it's a large topic that might need further clarification, further reports, but is there any intention in this corporate plan when it says we will work with partners or developers to expand and sort of sell access to us anymore?
Okay, Councillor John Williams.
thank you. I think I ought to ask Heather, I ought to give Heather the opportunity to respond to this.
Heather Jones.
Is she still there?
Yeah, sorry,
Lovely.
just my camera taking a little while. Thank you. Yeah, I think this refers to the pre-application process where we bring, or developers bring their proposals at pre-application stage to planning committees. It isn't part of the formal planning committee process. It's not a decision making. It is just an opportunity for developers to bring their proposals forward and to get some input. It happens elsewhere across the country. This has been raised recently as a concern, and officers are taking that on board, and I believe will be addressing or coming back with a report to members about it.
Perfect. Thanks very much. Councillor Bradman, did you want to come in on this point? Please do, and then I'll come back to you, Councillor Heather Williams.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. What I observe about that, I understand why Councillor Heather Williams is concerned about this. My observation is twofold. One is that in the review of the planning process that we had, which harmonised JDMC, South Cambs and City Planning Committee's procedures, this process of pre-application developer briefings was recognised as being valuable. That's one thing, and it set out the process for how it should happen. But the second thing is that in my experience, the process has resulted in much better quality applications when they come to committee, because the committee have asked questions, obviously not expressed views, but have enabled the developer to bring something forward which is much more acceptable to the committee, because it's a better application at the end of the process.
Okay.
I'm not casting a value judgment on that. I'm just saying that the function has resulted in a more efficient process.
Thank you for that, Councillor Bradnam. Councillor Heather Williams.
So yes, as Councillor Anna Bradnam says, I think that's partly what some of us struggle with, is essentially the developer is able to buy advantage when it comes to going through the planning system by having that access to committee that objectors don't get to buy time with planning committee, for example, in order to see how better their objections may be to a proposal. So I think that's where we get into this dilemma. But for the purposes of the corporate plan, this is obviously something that's happened, as you say, as part of review. Is there any plans to extend that to any other committees? Or does the corporate plan just want to leave it with planning? Because I definitely do not want anybody charged to have access to me as an elected councillor in any way, shape or form.
Yeah.
It's not right.
I see the point. Councillor John Williams, did you want to?
Well, this is a planning matter, and I think as Heather has already explained, it is done by local planning authorities across the country. The issue is that we've always, when I've been on JDC, the previous JDCC, we had developers come and explain their proposals to us at a pre-app stage. Richard's been involved with that as well. And that's been a common practice to enable members of the planning committee to better understand what the applicant is proposing. Okay. And it all helps with ensuring that when the application is received, that members are better informed about it. Now, up until now, we've not charged applicants to do that, but other local planning authorities do. Okay. And I think we felt that that is something we ought to consider.
Thank you for that. Councillor Richard Williams, is it on this point or in different?
Well, this is a related point.
Yeah, okay.
Just to make a point on that. I mean, I think the thing that's emerged that wasn't, certainly I didn't understand, was that developers are effectively paying for committee time, and we're being legally summoned to meetings and they are paying for the opportunity. And I agree with Heather Williams. I think that's not on, but that's a slightly different issue. I did have a separate question about this corporate plan, and it's just about something on page 93, and it relates to something Councillor Hobro talked about. And it's one of the sort of key outturns is about affordable houses. So it's 15C2, percentage of completions in Greater Cambridgeshire that are affordable. Now, I assume affordable there will be on the definition of the National Planning Policy Framework definition of affordable, which is different to what most people would probably understand as affordable. So could some thought be given to broadening that out to look at not just percentage of affordable homes in National Planning Policy Framework terms, but in terms of overall housing affordability within the district and what's happening to that, because the statistics are out there, and I'm basically talking about the affordability of homes to buy, which is a different thing.
Do you want me to bring Peter Campbell?
Well, can I bring Heather in first?
Yeah, Heather, yeah.
Sorry. Yes, no, that's something that we can take back and consider in the service and with Kevin. So happy to take that back and consider it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Richard Williams, did you want to come back on that at all?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
Lovely. I'm conscious, Councillor Heather Williams, did you want to come back? I know I brought Richard in. You do, yeah.
Yes, because I still don't feel I've had assurance from this corporate plan. To be clear, other councils, they do have early engagement with local ward members.
Yeah.
But actually developers coming to planning committee and paying for that is something that seems to be quite rare. Might happen somewhere. But my question was, in the corporate plan, amongst this, is there any view from the administration somewhere in here to extend that, and are other people going to be charged or not? Because it also refers to sort of commercialisation.
I see.
It's a yes or no, really.
Councillor John Williams.
Thank you. I thought I'd make it plain that this is a planning matter. Okay, so it refers to planning.
That's not my question.
Yeah, okay. So
and therefore it's really outside the scope of this. It's an operational matter. It's outside the scope of this corporate.
Chair, perhaps if I rephrase the question, the lead member may find it easier to answer. I gave that as an example of something that is currently happening. My question, Chair, is there in this corporate plan any intention to extend that to other areas, to other committees, perhaps the Climate Committee or the Grants Committee? If the answer's no, then that's fine. Please do give the answer. I'm just asking whether it's in this plan or not to extend it.
Okay.
Sorry, Chair, I thought I had given an answer, and it's no.
No,
It's except in the context of planning.
Thank you for that. So I think the answer is no on that. Councillor Heather Williams, any other points?
It was just that, Chair.
Thank you for that. Do we have any other Councillor Stobart.
Chair, change of subject. We're on page 94 of the agenda pack, page 6 of the corporate plan. I'm just looking at the outcome 7A2. So to quote, fit water flow reduction measures across 4,200 council properties identified with water meters. So on the face of it, this is quite a reasonable thing to do. It's kind of water retrofit program will offer significant rewards, and there'll be some good feedback from water meter reading. So it's to be commended. But I wonder if there's another opportunity here or something perhaps we could expand on later, which is water flow reduction measures are relatively novel. You know, if you were to question a plumber about a certain type of water saving measure, often you get a blank look because they're not generally handled. Is this a great opportunity to be understanding some water flow reduction measures in a little more detail? So for their robustness, their cost, their reliability. 4,200 sounds like a great sample size to be looking at stuff and to understand how customers react. So, we've often cited the fact that we don't have that much experience on water reduction measures. Is this an opportunity, or should we be looking at something else to, in a sense, build that expertise? And if I could finish with a question, what's our repository of knowledge on kind of water saving measures? Is it the planning service? Because the housing team has a great opportunity to be building some of that and to perhaps be sharing it with others in the council. Just one footnote, and it touches on skills. Any discussion about water conservation or water reduction says we need excellent plumbers, and there aren't that many of them. Yeah. So we're touching on a skills requirement here as well. And of course, putting out these contracts for the 4,200 houses will naturally pressure our community of plumbers to deliver better results. But do we have some activity to be done here on skills development too? So, sorry, I was a bit of a ramble with a few questions embedded, but
I'll come to Heather on this one.
Can I just come in here? Yeah. I mean, it depends on the housing. If it's our housing stock, then obviously our housing department will take the lead. If it's on, non-housing stock, then it's a planning or a matter, and they have to take into account the national guidance and rules on that. And so, as I'll let Heather come in here, but there is a separate. It's not homogeneous. What I'm trying to say. Okay, so I mean, maybe also Peter, if he's still here, would like to comment on the retrofitting of our council properties. But I'll let Heather come in on the planning issue.
Heather.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sure Peter will add to this as well. But we are working, the planning service is working in partnership with housing. And the point is exactly what's been raised is when we've implemented the retrofit scheme, we would hope to do some study to be able to share that knowledge and, through various means, whether we do case studies or even just with residents, so that we share that knowledge across the district so that other people can learn from it as well. And that is the point of the grant funding. So part of the grant funding allows for that communicating and engagement as well. I'll just touch on the planning aspect. You're absolutely right. We do have the opportunity through policy to influence use of water, etc. And we do, as you know, strive to make sure our standards are high, and that's going through consultation at the moment. The national government is also looking at those standards as well, so we do have to make sure that we align. The water scarcity, we sit on the water scarcity group, which is a MHCLG-led group, which has members from the Environment Agency and other water bodies, and there is a group that are working and looking at measures for water saving, and as much as we can, we will try and ensure that we pass that knowledge on. I'll let Peter add. Thank you, Peter.
Peter.
Thanks. Yeah, and I'd just like to stress what Heather said. The approach to this work is very much a partnership between planning and housing, working closer together on this. And the work that we're doing, so the work is targeted on properties with water meters. And the purpose of that is that we can measure the effectiveness of these measures, so we can measure the usage. Each property involved will have a survey beforehand, and we'll measure the satisfaction of the tenants, the difference it makes to them, and there will also be a control group who don't have the work until later, so they can measure the difference. So this is very much about working out what we're doing, making that measurable, and allowing us to share that across the industry.
Thank you for that. Councillor Stobart.
Well, that's very pleasing, I think, and thank you through you, Chair, to Peter and Heather for those comments. And Yeah, well, when the data begins to accumulate, I'm sure Scrutiny would be very interested to look at it and understand the significance. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Stobart. Councillor Richard Williams.
So I just wanted to come in on that one with a small point, but I would assume and hope that any data is anonymised, because it seems a bit unfair to be monitoring council tenants' water use, you know, in a way that could breach privacy. So I assume that's all going to be anonymised, and you'd never know whose water is, you know, which figure.
Yeah, I'm seeing.
Yeah, I'll formally confirm that. Yes, of course it is. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you for that. Okay, if we don't have any other speakers on this item, if we move to page 85, where the recommendation is at point 3, I think we have reviewed the Corporate Action Plan Appendix A, and we've provided recommendations to Cabinet and discussed that report, so it's ready to go to Cabinet. Is everybody happy that we've done that? Thank you for that. Okay, so we will move on to the next agenda item, which is the work programme, which is pages 119 to 138. And you'll see that you've got that there. And as ever, if councillors have things that they want to bring to the Scrutiny Committee, please contact Councillor Drew or myself, and we are happy to consider those. Councillor Richard Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask a question about the agenda item description for the Cambridge Growth Company meeting on the 29th, which says relationships and representation, how to sustain and develop through local government reform. I don't know what the Cambridge Growth Company has got to do with local government reform. That seems a odd description of what we're supposed to be considering, and not a very accurate one.
Okay, I mean, noted. Happy to look into that and change the descriptor on that. I think, yeah, that's reasonable. I think. Liz Watts.
Yeah. Thanks for raising that, Councillor Williams. I've absolutely no idea why it says that, because it's definitely not that. It looks like somebody has cut and paste something from a different agenda item.
Yeah. That's, I think, probably an oversight on my part. So, yeah. Councillor Stobart.
Yeah, just to clarify, that wasn't, I don't think when we made the proposal for this that local government reorganisation was on the horizon. Well, it was on the horizon somewhere, but it hadn't come into our view. And we were concerned about where Cambridge Growth Company fits into the local democratic process. I think that was the principal point.
Yeah, thank you for that. And obviously, I think you were the member that brought it to, recommend it come to scrutiny. So thank you for that. Okay, if we've got no other comments on, sorry, yeah. Yeah, so Liz Watts.
Just when you're ready, I've just got one small point about that meeting.
Please.
So just to let members know that I'll be sending out two notes. One is a briefing note about the Cambridge Growth Company and Development Corporations, which I hope will inform you in preparation for that presentation. And I'll also be sending out the policy document that Cambridge Growth Company wrote. I think it was October now. So I'll put those both in my member email next Wednesday. I'm just waiting for approval from the chair, who I only sent it to today, so I'm not rushing you. No, but just to make sure that you look out for that in my member email on Wednesday.
We'll have it tomorrow morning. Thanks for that. Yeah. Councillor Stephen Drew, did you want to just update about the second meeting in March? Yeah.
Yes. So if you look on page 118, you'll see that for the meeting on the 5th of March, at the moment, we have arts IT changes and digital delivery, Q3 performance report, Ermine Street housing business plan, and review and consideration committee meeting schedule. So we have 5 items on the 5th of March. This is not a sustainable meeting agenda. However, it is also a set of items that has to be covered. We have ended up in this position because the IT changes and digital delivery item, which was originally supposed to be presented in early January, is now not being presented at the time that it was expected to be presented, and that has caused a problem in relation to our meeting schedules. It was then not possible for it to be on tonight's agenda, for instance. Therefore, we are going to be proposing that we have an additional scrutiny meeting specifically related to the IT changes and digital delivery, because this is obviously a crucial part of the work of the council, and it represents significant spend, and it is a report that is then needed to come to scrutiny and go to Cabinet afterwards. So therefore, because of the delay to that report, it now doesn't fit in with our scheduling, and therefore we will need to put on a further meeting.
Thank you for that.
Is that likely to be after the 5th of March or before?
We haven't finalised a date yet,
Might be
in truth, Councillor Bradman, but as soon as we have, we'll make that available to all committee members. Thank you for that, Councillor Drew. Any other questions on the work programme? Obviously, if you do think of any between time, speak to Councillor Drew or myself and we will address those. So we will move on to the date of the next meeting, which is the 29th of January at 5:30. So thank you for your attendance this evening. Thank you to the Cabinet members that have attended. Yeah, I haven't missed anything. We've finished the meeting there. Thanks very much.